In 1997, 14-year-old Mike Garnier shot on Hayes Middle School in Kentucky, killing 3 people and injuring 5 others. During the investigation, the police found that the 14-year-old prisoner Garnier had many violent games on his computer, such as Doom, Quake, and Resident Evil. This incident caused a great sensation at the time, and the series of games gradually entered the public eye. Most people believe that these violent games trigger Garnier's crimes. In fact, there is sufficient evidence that Garnier often suffers from school violence, and Garnier has been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and even serious paranoia. Therefore, the presiding judge at the time believed that the main reason for Garnier's crime was his mentality. Illnesses and school violence throughout the year are not directly related to these violent games. Even so, most people who do not know the details of the case still believe that violent games will trigger criminal behavior. What we are going to discuss today is whether violence in RPG games will trigger crimes in reality. How did the violence in the game come about? In the final analysis, the violence in the game is generated from the earliest human instinct. Some of the social games we played when we were young, such as catching people, eagle catching chicks, contain violent elements in themselves. We usually play chess, and its production is also related to war. After the advent of video games, the second game of mankind is Space War, which is also a war-themed game. It can be said that Space War laid the foundation for the development of violent games in modern video games. Like human history, the violence in the game runs through and comes from human instinct. People also highly admire violent games, because violent games can bring people a sense of pleasure that people cannot experience in reality. At the same time, violent games are also a way of self-venting. With the development of RPG games, there are also many games with violent elements that are known and loved by people, such as the third-person single-player action-adventure video game God of War, the open-ended science fiction action-adventure game Prototype, and Rockstar Games' well-known Liberty City, the Grand Theft Auto series. Regarding the view of the score of games, we have to mention a notorious American lawyer, John Cruz Jack Thompson. Speaking of the Kentucky East High School shooting we just mentioned, Thompson participated in the lawsuit as a lawyer for the victim. Since Garnier often played violent games, Thompson strongly advocated that the game caused Garnier's violent tendencies, and game developers were responsible for this. However, because Garnier had a mental illness, Thompson did not get his wish. This failure did not make Thompson flinch. In 1999, the famous Columbine High School campus case occurred in Jackson County, Colorado. 2 criminals, Harris and Clybo, shot themselves after killing 12 students and a teacher. According to police investigations, both criminals were addicted to the violent game of Doom before the shooting. This incident once again gave Thompson a chance. He began to hide violent games or lead to crime, but also received the support of media. His theory of the squared-off game resonated with the public. One of Thompson's most famous things was his confrontation with the game Grand Theft Auto. In 2003, the 16-year-old suspect Dustin Lynch was charged with murder, and because Lynch was obsessed with GTA 3, the family of the victim believed that violent elements in the game led to Lynch's murder. Thompson was not a lawyer for either party at the time, but he seized this opportunity and took Rockstar Games' parent company, Take-Two Interactive, to court. The Grand Theft Auto series is a world-renowned crime-themed game developed by Rockstar Games. There are also many violent elements in the GTA series: robbery, shooting, fighting, assassination, and other elements fill the entire game, and most players are addicted to this violent gameplay. Because of Dustin Lynch's incident, Thompson made a strong attack on the GTA game. But the former president of Nintendo released the data on Twitter. In the United States, which ranks third in the game revenue in the world, the crime rate is incredibly high. Whether the crime rate in the United States is directly related to violent games is unknown. But at least there is no evidence to prove this argument, because most crimes in the United States have no relationship with video games. Even so, because of Thompson's remark, the theory of the sport of games has made many people biased toward games. To change this kind of public opinion, it will not be achieved overnight, and there is still a long way to go for the game and the player. I think that games that contain excessive violent elements will indeed have a negative impact on the immature people. But we cannot completely deny video games because of this. Reasonable violence elements are actually a buffer zone for players to relax and win. In summary, the grading system of games is very necessary. It can not only avoid the negative impact of violent games on the immature minors, but also provide a place for people who have encountered frustrations to win.